Welcome in. You are listening to a trade deadline edition of the Hornets on SI podcast. Joining me, Sam Dracula, Matt Alkiza of Hornets on SI, Charlotte Hornets beat reporter, and we are here to react to an eventful trade deadline day. Cody Martin for a second round pick, people thought. Nay, said Jeff Peterson. Mark Williams, gone. Vasa Micic, Cody Martin, gone. In comes Dalton Connect, Yusuf Nurkic, Cam Reddish, first round picks, two of them, a pick swap from LA. It has been a hectic day, and to break it all down, we've got a great crew here. Look, we have to start at the biggest news of the day, which is the Mark Williams trade that popped through at, I think, 5 a.m. my time. I don't know, around midnight your time. I'm going to come straight to you first, Matt. I mean, you were at the arena at the Hornets game last night watching Mark Williams play, and to see him traded just hours later, what were your first reactions?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody else, my first reaction was pure shock. I mean, all you have heard for the last 2 months since Mark Williams got healthy is that the Hornets were going to build around this core four for the long term. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Mark Williams. And in the last 2 weeks, we have seen Mark Williams' contributions really kind of fall off a cliff. He is not moving as well as he was on defense. His scoring numbers have gone down. His rebound numbers have gone down. And now he is the starting center on the Los Angeles Lakers. It is his career has been a roller coaster to this point already, right? Between coming in as a rookie, getting hurt during in his second year when he was playing really well, to coming back this year and playing well, and now he's not on the Hornets anymore. So it was a shocking move, but one that I think is totally defensible and honestly a good one in the grand scheme of things by Jeff Peterson and company.
Sam, if I called you up a week ago and someone said, hey, just letting you know, I heard from some sources that in a week's time, Mark Williams is going to be the starting center on the Lakers next to Luka Doncic and LeBron James, what would you have said?
I'd be like, you enjoying the new 2K? Because that's something you would do in a video game.
I don't think 2K would accept the trade. Sam, what are your thoughts? Matt seemed to like the deal. Matt seems to, his first impressions there, likes the deal. What are your thoughts?
I love it. It is ruthless. It is aggressive. It is forward thinking. Because James and I talked about this on our last show. Like, what do you pay Mark Williams in a year and a half?
Yeah.
And the idea of paying what we've seen, the version of Mark Williams that we've witnessed, 20, 25, $30 million, that is a scary thought. And for the Hornets to, A, not have to make that decision, and to arguably get more for what compared to what the Dallas Mavericks got for Luka. Like, how did the Hornets get those picks and the Mavericks didn't? That's wild. And I think Mark, this could be the I don't know, catalyst or turning point in his career where he gets around better players and elevates his game. But as of right now, the 2.5 years of Mark Williams we've seen, this is complete like fleece job. Like, the Hornets made out like bandits, in my opinion, in this trade. Now, Mark could get to LA, be around LeBron, be around Luka, and elevate his game, be locked in, become the rim protector. He's been advertised to be all this stuff and fulfill his potential. That may happen, that may not happen. But from what we know right now, I think the Hornets won this trade by a landslide and are in prime position to build towards the future without putting their salary cap at risk.
I definitely agree. They won the trade from an asset collection point of view, right? If you look at what's going out, what's coming in, there's risk on both sides. I think like Mark Williams could pop off, right? He's shown flashes in his time, which could make him a really interesting two-way center. Okay. This year, defense definitely wasn't there, but you just don't write off guys that young with his gifts. And when he's shown flashes in the past that he can't ever get there. So I don't disagree that the Hornets, I think, especially from the national analysts, a lot of people really liking the deal. Bobby Marks loved the deal for the Hornets. I've read a lot of people saying the similar thing, that this is a bold move of what rebuilding teams often don't do. Because normally when there's a young guy with a pulse on a rebuilding team, no, they're untouchable. They must stay. But the Hornets have done the brave thing going, we can get something here which is really valuable. We can get a player in Dalton Connect who we were heavily linked with during the draft cycle and might have even been in contention to be picked by the Hornets at 6 before T. Salon rocketed up draft boards relatively late in the process. So you're able to get a young player, potentially 2 future firsts, which even if they don't trade guys and draft guys in 2030 and 31, those picks have value. Now, a little bit less value now than they did when Luka Doncic wasn't an LA Laker, but the Lakers are still very asset poor. Doncic will be 30 by that season, and there is a world where you think they could be struggling. Even though we have a pretty strong track record, I think 25 years or so, that suggests that the Hornets will probably fall below the Lakers, and the Lakers will tumble their way backwards into being good. But it's a gamble. It's a brave gamble, but Jeff Peterson decided to take it.
I love it. I love the aggression. I really do. Because you brought up Connect and the Tejan Salon selection, and they bring it in, like, they could have drafted Connect. They could have drafted Klingon. And,
yes,
like,
well, now
I
you
don't
look
wanna
back
jump
on
too far
that
in.
with even more of a question mark, right?
Yeah. So I don't want to step on any future topics, but the notion, what I respect is, if let's pretend the Tejan Salon selection was a mistake. This is the front office not willing to live in a mistake and trying to fix it before it completely plays out. And I'm here for it. I like this aggression.
Matt, what are your thoughts on Dalton Connect? You wrote an article for Hornets NSI about Dalton Connect during the pre-draft process. I went back and read it today. How would you have felt on draft night if the Hornets had drafted Dalton Connect 6th overall?
Yeah, I was a fan of Dalton Connect's game coming into the draft process if he was drafted to be used in a specific role, not as a key starter on a good team. I think Dalton Connect's really NBA destiny is to be a microwave scorer off the bench due to his defensive limitations. He's never going to be the guy that you can throw at a athletic wing, a shifty guard, and expect him to be able to stay in front of them. Sam Vecini wrote about it again today. He said that was a huge problem, at Northern Colorado, at Tennessee, and it's continued to be a problem with the Lakers. We saw when the Lakers were in Charlotte, what was that, last week? Dalton Connect messed up some sort of rotation or assignment on defense, and JJ Redick called a timeout. And I watched JJ yell at Dalton Connect on his way off the court. So his defense is really.
What he yelled, because I've seen this, I've actually seen the clip, and someone's actually transcribed what he yelled. It was actually an offense, and JJ called the timeout, and he yelled at Dalton, the play was for you. And Connect is standing there, like looking around and like being like, where should I be? So right. You could see, and look, you saw when they drafted Connect with JJ Redick there, it's like the perfect mentor, and you can just see JJ being like, this guy is just not wide like I was and getting frustrated.
Right. And it's those positional things that he still misses on offense. He misses twice as much on defense. I mean, JJ has complained to the media about, not complained necessarily, but he has said that he would like to see some sort of defensive improvement from Connect. So with that being said, he is a pretty good offensive talent. We saw his 37-point game against Utah earlier this year in an NBA Cup match in Los Angeles. Like, that's the kind of guy that you want coming off your bench to just fill it up. And the Hornets do not have that. You look at the archetype of wings that the Hornets have right now, and Josh Green, not Cody Martin anymore, but Cody Martin, Josh Okogie. It's a bunch of guys that are strong, athletic, defensive-minded, score second, get stops first guys. Dalton Connect is the opposite of that, and it is exactly what the Hornets need right now. And what this roster needs going forward is another kind of microwave scorer off the bench, especially with Trey Mann's future up in the air with his current back problems. He is projected to be that guy, but at this point, who knows if he's back next year? Who knows what level of play you're getting from him? So for Dalton to come to Charlotte, to be the 6th, 7th man, come in, hit open jump shots, run the floor, hit threes in transition, which is another thing the Charlotte Hornets don't have now that Grant Williams is out for the year. I think is a really great fit for the current roster and moving forward.
Sam, Matt, I'm curious to get your thoughts here. I'd say there are three main motivations to moving Mark Williams. One will be the defensively, he's not what the Hornets thought they were getting. Two would be the health concerns, the amount of time that he's missed. And even when he's missed time, he's taken a long time to come back from them. He had the, I think, torn thumb ligament in his rookie year, back issue in his sophomore year, foot sprain in the third year, both with the back issue and foot sprain. You thought he could be back in like a week or two, and he ended up being out months and months. And then the third option was that they were going to have to pay him, as Sam mentioned earlier. Like, he was going to be extension eligible this summer. He was probably going to be seeking between 20 and 30 million. And let's face it, you weren't going to learn a lot more the second half of this season because of all the players being in and out of the lineup. So the Hornets were going to have to decide, do we sign this guy to an extension with limited information? Which of those three things do you think was the biggest factor in them deciding to move on? I guess we could say the fourth thing is that this was a once in a lifetime offer from the Lakers, that if a unique scenario where they're desperate for a big, they need one right now, and you're getting, more bang for your buck than you'll ever get before. So of those four areas, Sam, I'm going to come to you first. Which of those do you think was the biggest factor in them deciding to move on from Mark Williams?
I think it's the money and the type of player that he is. Like, this is peak value. He's healthy right now. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, like, of the potential guys that could be traded, a lot of them were falling off and ended up on the injury report. The fact that Mark Williams is an active player currently and has put up enough tape to raise up his value, you have to move him now because of that rookie contract. It's beneficial for the Lakers while they're figuring themselves out as well, right? So if you waited till the summer or next year, I don't think you get the swap and the first round pick for him.
Oh, absolutely not. Like, I completely agree. It's this is going to be a one-time thing. I understand. Yeah, Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's, definitely a mix of all those things. I think also maybe if you were to throw a fifth hat in the ring, Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee, they didn't draft Mark Williams. They're trying to, rebuild this roster with quote unquote Hornets DNA. And I don't love calling out anybody's effort levels at the NBA because I don't know what is going on day to day, but his effort levels seemed like they were down the last couple of nights, especially on Monday against Washington. Some of his closeouts were frankly pretty lazy, and we saw Terrence Oglesby call him out at halftime, which that's a whole another story, but he might just not be the kind of player that they are looking to build this team around. When you're going to pay him this offseason, you're going to pay him, mid-market to top of the market center money. If he does not embody this Hornets DNA, the commitment to daily improvement, the winning attitude, all of the platitudes that Charles Lee says every time he steps to the podium, it makes complete sense that they are moving on from him at the peak of his value right now.
And we have to remember, right, who has seen Mark Williams more than any fan, media, analyst? It's the Hornets. They've seen how he interacts every day, how he is at shoot around, how he is in film sessions, how he is getting his treatment. They've definitely seen a lot of that, right? And a lot of the time when teams make that decision, they know the risk, right? We can all look at here and say, well, look at potential, but they've seen the stuff that we don't see. And I think sometimes that can be pretty damning of the situation as well. Sam, you mentioned earlier about the Hornets. You loved it that they're pushing the timeline back. How do you both feel about, I think previously there was an understanding that next season, add a lottery pick, you're loaded to go with the core four plus a lottery pick, this team could push for the play-in. It feels like today that next season, the play-in, that just isn't really a priority anymore. Like, this team is rebuilding the rebuild, okay, times two. And I have a little bit worry about fans, being able to, especially the ones who go to the games in arena, they are fatigued of this Hornets losing time and time again. And to basically sign up for maybe another rebuilding year of disappointment next season, I think some fans are at breaking point. And even my first reaction when I came across this is, oh my God, this is going to take even longer. and it gets difficult to watch. So do you think they risk just losing out on fans, on interest, just because of the elongated time of probably being irrelevant? Matt, I'll come to you.
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like the Hornets are going to be that much worse next year with a different center than they would be with Mark Williams. Because, ideally, Grant Williams comes back at some point next year. They maybe re-sign Trey Mann to a decent contract. They have some flexibility now to add more pieces to the front court. So what the Hornets are looking at is now a starting lineup next year of LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, a lottery pick, and Yusuf Nurkic. Which, I mean, the main difference in the rotation is going to be Mark Williams swapped out for Yusuf Nurkic. And I don't necessarily think that really changes their timeline too much going into next year. So I do agree there is a chance that it really does change their timeline and pushes it back another year because they're still trying to build assets, right? They just traded Mark Williams, a current starter, for a prospect and some more picks down the line. But if we're just looking at like the way the roster looks next year, it's on the surface, it's just flipping Mark Williams for Yusuf Nurkic. And if we thought that the team was going to push for the play-in next year with Mark Williams, I don't think that change necessarily changes that goal, if that makes sense.
Sam, we're going to get into the Nurkic trade in full later, but do you agree with Matt's thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it all falls on LaMelo and Brandon Miller's health and availability. So, yes, I think the roster is pretty much a push, at least the starting five. Now, you lose Cody Martin's defense, but you gain Connect shooting. Josh Green and Cody Martin are kind of redundant, so it's kind of a push. So, there's a lot of similarities there, right? Trey Mann coming back, maybe not coming back, I don't know, what his health is looking like, Grant Williams, etc. But, yeah, I mean, it's all on LaMelo and Brandon Miller. That they control the ceiling of this team. And with all the picks, plus expiring contracts and Nurkic, it'll be an expiring contract next year if they want to play around with that. There's going to be a time where they have to cash in these draft picks in the trade market. And if someone comes available that fits, the Hornets should be in a position to at least like have a conversation with another team about bringing in a legitimate like all-star like floor guy like that can really lift this team up. So I think they can do whatever they want in the summer, but like as long as LaMelo and Brandon Miller are healthy, that they have a shot to be in the mix.
I'm torn on that. I think we saw Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball play well at times this year, and the talent level of the team was still subpar. And those guys would have good games, and the team would lose by 10, 15 points. So I'm wary just to say it only depends on like those guys. And I think Williams to Nurkic is a real drop off. I think this team is going to get younger again. They're missing Cody Martin, who's been Vasa Micic. Like, who's going to be signing up for a rebuilding year in Charlotte as a free agent? I do have real concerns about the quality of the team that's going to be put out next year, but I think that's going to be part of the plan. I'm going to ask you both this question. This is the most significant trade in Hornets basketball history since ... I'll open that up to either of you who wants to go first.
This is probably some nostalgia, and I don't remember the full details around this, but I remember how big of a deal it was when they traded Gerald Wallace. I guess, was that at the trade deadline
That was to the Blazers for
2000
picks and
maybe?
I'm trying to remember what else now.
Yeah, whenever that was and whatever the deal was, I remember that being like a seminal moment in the Bobcats when they were kind of moving on from the Gerald Wallace crash era into something brand new, which was, right before they had the 7-59 tanking season. That's when you ask that question, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is it was the most impactful trade since they moved on from Gerald Wallace to put all of their eggs in the Anthony Davis basket a year or two later.
Sam, how about you?
I mean, I'm looking at the chat. I'm liking some of the answers I'm seeing here. Al Jefferson, Alonzo Mourning.
The Zoe trade, that's the one for me.
Yeah. Alonzo
Mourning for Glenn Rice. Obviously, completely different, massive trade because it's like all-star player for all-star player. But that's the one for me. I think in terms of like assets back, I think this is probably, Glenn Rice is definitely of a higher caliber because he's trading for an all-star player. But this is the next up there, I think. And these trades just don't happen. Like young guys in their third year who've shown promise, you trade them because essentially for future draft capital, they're just so rare. In fact, the only trade that I could find that came out anything close to it was when the Sixers traded Michael Carter-Williams after his second year, and he'd won Rookie of the Year. And Sam Hinkie went, great, let's trade him while his stock is high because we don't think he's the answer. And look, long-term, he was proved right. Sam Hinkie was right in that. Michael Carter-Williams was not a starting point guard in this league, never mind something you build your franchise around. But at the time, it's difficult to see that because we only have limited parts of information. And that's why I think we have to have some element of trust here in the front office that they have seen everything and have all the information they need to make this decision. But it is just a really fascinating package. Do you think if they could go back in time right now, knowing what they know now, that they're going to trade Mark Williams, they would have drafted Donovan Clingan, 6th overall? If you gave Jeff Peterson truth serum, do you think he would say, yeah, I think we would have done that?
It's hard to say no. It's really hard to say no, that he would not look back on that move to draft T-John and say, Donovan Clingan would fit this roster better, and I would go back and redo that.
Sam?
Yeah, same. I was screaming, draft Clingan, trade Richards. It'd be really nice to have Clingan right now. He can still do the Mark Williams trade. It's available. He would still be available in that scenario. But no, yeah. I think they would take Clingan if they could do it over again. At least I'd hope so.
Yeah. Just a pretty shocking move overall, this Mark Williams, right? I mean, if you'd have told me at the start of the day that the Hornets would trade 2 of the core 4, I would have guessed Miles Bridges and LaMelo Ball ahead of Mark Williams. I'll be honest right now. Like, I thought LaMelo Ball would be more likely to get moved in a blockbuster deal than Mark Williams because I just thought, like, it's too early. Like, why would you're still figuring everything out. You're still trying to understand what can he do, what he can't do. He's played, 82 games in 2.5 years? I'm just shocked that they pulled the plug this early because even though the struggles, there were definitely flashes there. Do you guys agree? Would you have been more surprised at a LaMelo trade or a Mark Williams trade?
LaMelo.
Yeah, I still think LaMelo just because, he is the draw for the franchise right now.
And guess I'm out on my own with that one.
I understand. I do think there's a legitimate argument to be had of which would be more shocking. But, LaMelo is hopefully set to come back from his ankle injury in a couple of days. He still sells tickets. People still are interested in the Hornets because of what he is. I think moving on from him mid-season would have been more shocking to me than Mark Williams.
Yeah. I want to reveal something that yesterday I was texting with someone about the Hornets in general, but Mark Williams specifically, and we were talking about the defense, and we were complaining about the defense. And I wrote in my WhatsApp, which I wish I could share this, but I wrote, and I quote, this was about his defense essentially being subpar. It changes things long term, as with Ball and Miller, you can't afford to have another minus or average defender. I wrote that yesterday, and less than 12 hours later, Mark Williams was gone, which is kind of what I was beginning to get at in this is like, you can't have these 3 guys or Mark Williams to be the defensive anchor when he isn't a defensive anchor behind those 2 players. And I think like simply that's what it comes down to. And we don't know who that long-term defensive anchor will be. Will it be Carmen Malawak? Will it be Miles Turner in free agency? Will it be some other future person that we don't know right now? But I think the Hornets felt pretty confident that it wasn't Mark Williams, which it's a brave time. But I mean, what an opportunity for Mark, going from the most irrelevant team in the league to the most relevant team. I'm kind of excited for him, even though he's going to end up being in LA, because he's going to have the spotlight on him and he's going to have every opportunity to succeed. And it could be a pretty incredible career move for Mark Williams.
Yeah, I think I want to believe that we're going to see a new level out of him because this is the best situation he's ever been in. And if you don't, but I'm concerned because we've seen LeBron around young guys before and it hasn't gone so well. So I'm hoping Mark can stay mentally strong over there and prove what he's capable of because I am rooting for him.
Yep. All right. We're going to move on to our next discussion. We're going to move on to the second trade the Hornets made today. The Hornets traded Cody Martin, Vasa, Micic, and a 2026 second-round pick, which will either be, not both, but either Golden State's or Denver's second-round pick. I haven't seen confirmation of that yet. If anyone has, let me know. For Jusuf Nurkic and a 2026 first-round pick. The first-round pick will be the least favorable of Orlando, Memphis, and Washington. So probably likely in the early 20s, early to mid-20s, something like that in 2026. Matt, I know you have to go in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to come to you first to get your thoughts and when you saw that kind of pop up. If were you expected? Were you surprised? What were your thoughts when you saw that?
Yeah, I expected. I mean, James, credit to you. You tweeted that basically the general framework of that deal earlier in the day. So you kind of had the thought of that on my radar. I mean, I think that's just a fantastic move by Jeff Peterson. He shored up the center rotation for the rest of the season. He moved on from two guys that likely would not have been in Charlotte in October of 2025 anyways, and got a valuable first round pick in 2026 back. I mean, I'm very hesitant to give a trade an A+ when it just got completed less than 2 hours ago, but it's hard to call that anything but an A+ because he filled the current need of the roster so Charlotte can continue to play semi-competitive flag adjacent basketball for the next 3 months while also adding some more future draft capital.
Sam, I know how much you hated Nurkic because we had a whole conversation about Jusuf Nurkic on this very podcast. So I'm really interested to see what you got to say about it.
Wait, Nurkic was in this trade? I was just looking at that first round pick. I didn't even notice. Didn't even notice. No, like, okay, yeah. The Hornets need a center. As much as I love Moussa Diabate, like, it's pretty unfair for him to throw him out there like, hey, man, we need you to hold it down the rest of the year.
It's unfair on Taj Gibson's knees to back him up
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, he didn't sign up for this. They didn't tell Taj this was happening when he signed up for this in the summer. But no, like Nurkic, yeah, his contract next season is when you combine the Cody Martin contract and the Micic contract, the potential of that at least, if you can carry that over, it's like a $3 or $4 million difference. Like it's not that much of a cap burden going into the next season. Plus, like I mentioned, if they want to flip him later, they can. With those picks, with that cap number, there is flexibility there if they want to go get a more permanent solution at center. So for now, for the rest of the year, it's fine. But that first round pick, even though it's going to be in the 20s-ish, I feel like the Hornets got it for free, like a free first round pick to add to the bundle.
Absolutely. Well, look, Matt, we're going to lose you here. You can go read Matt's work on HornetsOnSI.com. You can find him on X. What's your handle on X, Matt? You're going to give it out here.
Yep, at MLKiza8 on X.
There you go. He tweets out loads of interesting insights, little things, tidbits, interviews from attending Hornets games. So make sure you go follow Matt. Matt, thank you so much for jumping on. You've got to go jump on another podcast to talk about the Charlotte Hornets now. But I appreciate you giving us all your really good stuff early here. But he's a man in demand, so he's got to go. Matt, appreciate your time, and we'll link up soon.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
All right, Sam. Whew. Back to the two of us. We'll update our little layover here. Here we go. This feels
We're doing
more
it
like
live.
just the two of us. Here we are. Look, you might notice, people, now we've switched to our old layover here. We have poor Mark Williams in the top right corner. We need to get that updated. We need to get that updated quick. I'll see what I can do while we record this podcast.
Good point at it. There you go.
Sam, let's get into this Nurkic trade a little bit more. This was the type of deal I was expecting the Hornets to see. You know, if I'd woken up today and they made this trade and not done the Williams thing, I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, you get rid of some expiring contracts, you take on some bad salary, you get like a late first. This was the exact move that I kind of expected. But to do it once you've made the Mark Williams trade, it actually just makes a lot more sense. Because, like you said, you can't throw Moussa Diabate and Taj Gibson out here for the next 2 years. And people will moan about Nurkic because he pouts and he's sulked and he's been, not the best teammate in Phoenix and just generally has kind of like a solemn, glum, complainy reputation. But I'll tell you what he can do. One of the better post interior defenders because he is 7 foot, 290 pounds. Super strong. Gives you an interior presence that guys like Mark Williams, while he might not block a lot of shots, he has a presence just through his physicality. He'll help on the glass, offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, something that the Hornets desperately needed to replace in terms of Mark Williams. And the biggest thing, I think, offensively, he's never been an efficient scorer. It's all floaters, layups, kind of little push shots. It's not pretty. But what he can do is pass the ball and decision make in the short roll and in dribble handoff situations. And we've seen Charles Lee talk about that probably more than any other head coach I can remember, about the importance of that for this Charlotte Hornets team, for the way that he wants to play, where so many teams are sending 2 people at LaMelo Ball, at Brandon Miller, that they want to get the ball, make the seam pass, get the ball to the big, and then he has to make a decision on what next. He has to be the quarterback of the offense. And Nurkic is the best player they've had been able to do that, probably since Mason Plumlee, which I know wasn't that long ago and brings back some bad memories for people, but he was a good passer at doing that as well. But he can do that thing, and he can keep this offense moving, keep the ball movement going, when at times it's been pretty stagnant over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. It's just, man. But the whole team is kind of, oh man, it fits. It fits the theme of the squad, in my opinion, for sure. But to your point, there's opportunity for guys to thrive off the potential attention he will get. And the new guy connect, maybe Josh Green will take more of initiative now because there are more shots should be available as well, because Mark Williams was getting a lot of attention before the drop-off. Maybe that will be just something to look out for, because I'm also curious to see Miles Bridges, how he looks next to Nurkic, because Williams and Bridges next to each other really reminded me of Ball and Rozier back in the forever ago, where these two guys were super important offensively, but just issues defensively. And I'm curious if we see a different version of Bridges next to Nurkic, just so the Hornets can have an idea of what type of center fits best with him, because for all intents and purposes, he's part of the plans, and that the front court has to be solidified. And how does Bridges work with Nurkic is something I'm looking forward to seeing, and I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. Some really interesting comments about Nurkic. Jimmy GBT said Hornets haven't had a true big that can shoot. Nurkic trade was great. A little bit of pre-warning. I wouldn't describe Nurkic as a shooter. I think his career 28.5% shooter from 3. It's kind of come and gone over the course of his career, and mostly gone this year. So I don't know if he'll get the green light to stretch the floor here in Charlotte. I think he could, but look, no team is closing out hard on a use of Nurkic's 3-point shot. I'm just letting you know. So I just want to try and manage expectations here. For the sanity of fans, get rid of Micic. Look, Micic, he's actually been really good when LaMelo Ball has been injured this year. And whenever he's come off the bench, he's been looked like one of the worst players in the NBA. And I don't know why there is such a severe disparity between the two, but there just is. I've watched all the games. I can tell you have as well. It's one of the strangest things I've ever seen, but some people just can't come off the bench, and Vasa Micic seems to be one of them. And I think he's probably going to be back in Europe next year. But I hope for Vasa's sake that he can land on his feet.
Well, that's like, if you're Phoenix, you're trading for a guy who can't start, or can only start basically to get the most out of him. But you have Jones, you got Booker, you got Beal. Well, you brought him in to be a backup point guard.
I don't know if they brought him in to play him at all, really.
Yeah, Well, I don't think I get much out of him if he does touch the floor. It's gonna be tough.
Regulator said Nurkic is still averaging 12 points, 9 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 1 block per game in his career. You're absolutely right. I will say there are a lot of signs of physical decline for Nurkic. He's 30 right now, and 30 doesn't sound that old, but when you see Nurkic's body type, he is like not a natural athlete, let's say. And I think some of those guys physically decline a lot soon. If you look at a lot of the numbers, steal, block metrics, some of the tracking data I've seen as well, he is moving less, moving slower, and he's not jumping as high as he was. I just think you're starting to see some of that decline. So I wouldn't expect that level of production, but I do think he will be a guy who will be productive just because he is skilled when he's out on the floor.
And for an older guy, and for him being an older guy, and he hasn't played in like 30 days, that is going to be interesting to see if he has any rust on him, because he has not played in a long time. Yeah. In a long, long time.
And I really do think Nurkic's time in Charlotte, how long it might be, right? It could be short. It could be gone in the offseason. It could be gone next trade deadline. I'd probably put it at like sub 30% that he makes it to the end of his contract would be, I'd probably 25, 30%.
Yeah.
I think whatever attitude he brings to it will define his success. If he brings the whole attitude of like, what? I've been sent where? Charlotte? Oh, God. If he brings that attitude, this is going to probably be like an uncomfortable, painful price to pay for the first round pick. If he views it as, great, I've been stuck on the bench in Phoenix with a team and a coach who don't like me, I'm going to just ignore that Charles Lee loves Mike Budenholzer, who's the coach I don't like and is his mentor. But if I just ignore that for a second, I'm going to go to Charlotte where I can start, I can play, I can have the ball in my hands. I'm not just going to have to pass it to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker every single time and just go stand in the dunker spot. If he comes with that sort of attitude of just like, I want to refine my joy, my passion, then I think the Hornets could have a really impactful player. You know, that was my big worry when we talked about Nurkic, when there was rumors for him in the Richards trade. I think I said to you on this very podcast, on paper, I think he would actually help the team and he'd be a good fit. But the problem is, I didn't think he would have that approach coming off the bench for 12 minutes a night behind Mark Williams. Well, that isn't an issue anymore. There is no 12 minutes a night because he's probably going to be starting. And very quickly, this is the sub-story of all this. Moussa Diabate, there's one space on the Hornets roster. You know who's getting upgraded to a standard contract, right?
You got to.
The Moose is loose. We need to tie down the Moose. We need to tie down the Moose to a contract.
Yeah.
I'd expect like a 3-year, I don't know, like 3-year minimum contract or something like that. I mean, maybe even more, maybe slightly above the minimum, but I'd expect that'll be something that you get done here. Probably maybe even like over the All-Star break when they have a little bit of time. His agent, the team, once it moved on past this trade deadline, I think we're probably going to see that from Diabate, and that's been well and truly deserved.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And one of the bright spots of the season, like when you're recapping this year, this Hornets season, Moussa Diabate is going to be in like the top 3 of topics, I think. And it's deserved, not in a bad way, like, oh, it's Moussa Diabate. Like, legitimately, this guy, a two-way guy, earning a spot, outlasting the 2 centers above him in the depth chart, and earning a full-time roster spot. Like, it's a great story from Moussa Diabate.
Yeah. Regulator in the chat says, is Yusuf Nurkic the Gordon Hayward of centers? And I think that is a great example to use. That is a fantastic example to use. That's a good pull there. Look, let's talk a little bit about the players who didn't get moved this deadline. There was speculation about Miles Bridges. I think that once the Mark Williams move got made, people went, oh, Miles could be next. And I think Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports even reported that he was hearing that the Hornets were open and listening to offers for Cody Martin, Vasa Micic, and Miles Bridges. 2 of those players got traded. 1 of them didn't. Are you surprised that Miles Bridges is still here after the trade deadline?
No, I would always viewed Bridges as a summer move, if at all, just because that number is so tough to make work. And in the summer, teams have more cap space and there's just more time to flesh things out. So for Bridges to move today, I thought it would have been a pretty a long way to go. I would have been really surprised if they moved him.
I agree. I think he's been playing better recently.
Yeah, definitely.
I still think there'll be teams that look at the full body of work because like Miles Bridges has had these stretches throughout his career. And he even said this the other day. He's like, my problem in my career is I've been inconsistent. And he's absolutely right. He said stretches of every season, which if you look at, you go, Miles Bridges, wow. And then he's the other stretches where you go, okay, that's like not helping the team in the same way, or he's been really inefficient, or he's been really passive. He's struggled to be efficient. And I think for some people right now will say this latest bit of good play, oh, it's just another hot streak for Miles Bridges. I also think, look, not all teams would want to trade for Miles Bridges because of the off-court domestic abuse charge and violations, right? Some teams just that will be a non-starter still. I know we don't hear about it. I know we don't talk about it as much, but when you trade someone like that, it all comes back up to the surface, right? And you have the owner and the GM has to go home at night and explain to his wife and kids why they've just traded for this player. And they've probably seen the videos and the photos that everyone else has seen. So that will also be just an added barrier on top of all the basketball things of why Miles Bridges won't be traded. But I think they would still be open to Miles Bridges. Like if there'd been a Mark Williams level offer move for Miles Bridges, they're moving him. But I don't think there is for all the reasons that we've just talked about.
Yeah, and kind of like with Micic, if you're trading for Bridges, he's probably going, because that means you're a team that's pretty solidified, just missing one or two pieces. And Bridges is kind of the opposite of Micic, where you don't need him to start Bridges. If you're a good team and you're adding Bridges to your 8-man rotation, you're lifting up your bench. And that is an element I think we could see kind of bump up his trade value in the summer if it comes to that, where a team feels like they came up a little short in the playoffs and they need to fortify their bench. I think Bridges, with his declining annual contract, I think that is where his value would be, I think. And then you're like, all right, well, do we give up a first-round pick for a seventh man in the rotation? Probably not mid-season, especially if there's not a real market for it. But I think if it does happen, it would be to a good team in the summer where they're just looking for that added spark in the front court off the bench.
Yeah. And Richard Stamen, Mavs draft shout out Richard, he's been on this podcast before as a guest around draft time, asked, would anyone actually willingly trade for Bridges, though? It's a potential PR hit. So we just discussed that there have been teams, the Clippers and the Suns have been rumored to be interested in Bridges in the past. So that's what I mean. I think there are specific teams who would be open to making that move. It would not be for everybody. And that limits your pool of buyers. That's going to limit the offers you're going to get as well. Rugby Itch asks, hypothetically, if the Hornets somehow got the first pick, I think he's asking here, in the 2025 draft, what other player should the Hornets target for the future? Well, Cooper, he mentions Cooper Flag, so I'm guessing what he means here is like other than Cooper Flag. If they get the first pick, they should not consider anybody else other than Cooper Flag. He is perfect for this team, for this roster, and for most rosters, but especially this one in every way. Just quickly hit it. We're not going to do draft stuff today. Other names, I like VJ Edgecombe as a big guy. I think after the Mark Williams trade, Carmen Malawak, the Duke center, will probably get a look now. Big defensive presence, can stretch the floor a little bit, although he's not shown it this year. He might be a guy who gets a look. Wouldn't be with the top 2 or 3 pick, but the Hornets have got enough future first-round picks now. If they got first overall in this draft, they could easily find a deal somewhere in probably the 6 to 10 range by trading some future picks to get in there and select another guy.
So take Flag and then trade back into the top 10.
Absolutely. Okay. You trade 2 firsts, or something. You trade the Lakers pick and something else to get back in the top 10. Like, not every team will want to do that, but depending what you're willing to put on the table, they've got the ability to if they want to. So that could be something that they consider as well.
Yeah, they have options, and not getting into the long-term Mark Williams business just gives them flexibility. Yeah,
and some good comments here in the chat. Names in the later first round as well. Derek Queen, Maryland post center, really rocketed up recently. Esanul, another big who's been doing well on draft boards. So there are other options later in the first round if they didn't want to pay the price to get up into the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what do you think the starting lineup then is going to be here for the Charlotte Hornets moving forward for the rest of the season? Let's assume everybody is healthy. What do we think the starting lineup looks like?
Wait, so Brandon Miller's gone then?
Well,
right?
not Brandon Miller, the temporary injury guys.
Okay, so
LaMelo
no
Ball.
Miller, no Williams.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so
no Trey Mann.
No Trey
let's
Mann.
say as well.
So LaMelo, obviously. Nick Smith Jr., Josh Green.
Okay.
Miles Bridges, Nurkic.
So you have Dalton Connect coming off the bench as the sixth man. This is where it gets like political, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you put in Dalton Connect in that starting unit, Nick Smith is not happy, right? He's going, I've been finally getting my opportunity.
Yeah.
And now you're pushing me to the side for this guy who just brought in the shiny new toy. And he's been playing better in the starting unit. So, but Connect has actually played better as a starter in LA as well. So it is an interesting challenge how they manage that one. I think they could look at both. I think they could, with the way this season is going, is kind of mix things up. And if they speak to the players saying, look, we're going to look at a bunch of things down the stretch here. Connect, you're going to start some games. Smith, you're going to start some games. You know, everybody's going to get a go. Participation trophies all around. That might make the most sense to kind of not bruise any egos for unneeded reasons.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if anyone's not getting a run during this stretch where it's a basic free-for-all in audition mode, like you're not part of the plans for the future. Like from now until the end of the season, if you don't see a guy touch the floor, they're not part of the plans.
Yeah. Jimmy GPT in the chat says, will we see Nick Smith play more point guard with Micic gone, man hurt? I don't know if you will. I think you'll see more KJ Simpson, right? We saw that the other night when Micic and LaMelo was out, is that KJ Simpson started a point guard. I think that's what you're probably going to see more of than Nick Smith. I think in a pinch, they might do it if they have to, but I'm pretty confident they view Nick more as a floor spacer scorer than a lead ball handler. And I think that's right for how he's playing right now. Like, I think that helps him be effective. I think we've seen in Summer League, he's struggled as that primary ball handler. Assist to turnover ratio has been down. And he's just not got the Hornets into good offense quick enough, right? He's wide to score. That's the first thing that comes to his mind. And he has some secondary passing ability as well.
Yeah, I think the time, like, Nick Smith Jr. has time for that to be part of his game. It's not there. It's not there right now.
Another question here from Eric Schaefer. Josh Green doesn't need to start. Have him be sixth man. I don't know. I think you have LaMelo, Nick Smith, Dalton Connect as your starting like backcourt and wings. That is like just light your defense on fire and just burn it to the ground. You need to have balance, right? And the Hornets second unit doesn't have scoring right now because of all the injuries, because Trey Mann is out, etc. So I think I'm with you. I think you have Nick Smith or Dalton Connect come off the bench. I'm probably not picky about which one. I would view Dalton Connect as a better prospect long term. That might be controversial to some people, but hey, and at least the Hornets have someone in the Rising Stars Challenge now.
Yeah.
Thanks to Dalton Connect's illustrious season to date with the Charlotte Hornets.
If Connect gets onto the all-rookie team, does that count? Can the Hornets count that?
In the history books, it will count. So
hey, let's go. let's go.
Let's put it this way: if Mark Williams is an All-Star next year, does it count for us?
And I'm gonna shoot Nick Smith Jr. some bail. He's 3 years younger than Connect, so if for whatever reason Connect finds himself ahead of him in the rotation, it's not the end of the world for Nick Smith Jr. You know, his time will come. Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah. Any other players here that you're surprised didn't get moved, or anyone you think you're interested to see how these deadline moves affect them?
Let's see. I mean, a Cody I thought had potential to move. just because I could see other teams valuing him. I'm glad he's staying. Like Seth, I didn't think had any chance to really move. And then it was either Josh Green or Cody Martin. I had a hard time believing they would move both of them, and Cody being older and hurt, by the way. How's that going to work for Phoenix?
Well, sports hernia, which sports hernias normally need to be operated on. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe the sports hernia was really a NBA trade deadline related injury, and it's not as serious as we've been able to see. I think we'll have to see how it plays out here. But I think I saw the Suns. If they were to waive both Micic and Martin this offseason, because both have team options for next year, I think they would save in total by moving Nurkic and by waiving those two, $120 million in salary.
Mental.
That is a seriously large number. Now, I actually think they'll keep Cody Martin because he can help them, and they're trying to win now. But Micic, I think, is likely to be gone. Right, Sam, we're coming up to 50 minutes here. We've hit a lot. This has obviously kind of been a bit of a reaction pod. We're going to get to see a lot of these guys in person. And as Regular points out in the chat, first challenge, Yusuf Nurkic, go guard Wemby. Welcome to Charlotte.
I'm here for it.
Anything else you want to get out here? Let's get a final grade for the Hornets trade deadline as a whole from you.
As a whole, like, I love it. They left today with 3 first-round draft picks, and they gave up Mark Williams, Cody Martin, and Micic. That's not bad. Not bad. I'm liking this with the new owners. Like these back-to-back busy deadlines. I don't know how sustainable or if this will become a regular thing, but since the new owners took over, these deadlines have been fire. They've been active in the trade market. I like it. I like it a lot.
Everyone likes the bold approach, right? They like active, and I guess I'm always a bit wary because I'm like, well, everyone liked when you're bold until you pick T. Salon and you look in 6 months and you go, that's not working out. It felt bold at the time and we're really excited by the long-term potential, but now we've actually seen what it looked like. It's a bit scary. Look, they're certainly putting their stamp on things, and this is one thing that I think we can take from today is the ownership and front office of this team are fully aligned, because you do not make a move like you do with Mark Williams if the ownership and front office are not backed, because normally that is the type of thing where the owner or the GM would step in and go, no, that's not what you do. But they have complete trust and faith, and they are not rushing this. They are pushing this out, like you said. They are in no rush to be back in the play-in next year. They are maximizing every little drip of value they can get from every asset they have, and that is all they care about right now. And that has now put the Hornets in a position where I believe they have the joint most incoming first-round picks with the Utah Jazz. I think they have 11 or 12 behind Oklahoma City Thunder. So like you said, they can rival any single team now when the next, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, when those guys come in the market, the Hornets can offer a draft package to rival pretty much any team other than OKC. So that's really interesting. A lot of questions coming in on the chat. Some of the stuff that we've already hit on. This will be.
I really forgot about it. His involvement.
We did forget about Cam Reddish.
Shouts to Jimmy.
You have a smoking hot Cam Reddish take. Throw it my way.
Duke guy. Duke guy.
Duke conspiracy.
Keeping the
has
Duke
another
quota
little feather
alive.
cap to it. Jeff Peterson drafted Cam Reddish, if people didn't know, when he was in Atlanta, right? So there is an element of he is teaming back up with someone here, Jeff Peterson, who he knows very well. Now, since then, Cam Reddish has kind of proven in multiple spots that he's not really an NBA rotation player, which is a bit worrying. So, I view him as a throw-in to help the Lakers save salary rather than anything else. But he was young, crazy things have happened that he's could turn into something useful. But I'm not holding my breath at all. I've never been a Cam Reddish guy. I didn't like him pre-draft. I never bought into the hype with him when he was in New York. The Hornets were linked with him when he was in New York. And I found my old tweet about Cam Reddish where people were going at me because I wouldn't trade a second-round pick for Cam Reddish about 2.5 years ago. That was a real thing that happened. So I like to think that one's aged out pretty well so far. But hey, they got him in the end, so we'll see if it works out.
Yeah, and there's no cap obligation for him next year. He's an expiring, so it's a harmless move.
Yeah. Final question here from Dwight. Buyout targets. The Hornets aren't buying. They're not going to sign out any buyout targets. Buyout targets are basically only for teams that are going to make the playoffs. And the Hornets are nowhere near that. So the Hornets will not be trying to get anyone on the buyout market. This roster looks pretty set to me for the end of the year. It will be fill the final roster spot with converting Musa Diabate's 2-way contract to a standard contract. But Sam, a pretty monumental day in Hornets history. Glad we're able to jump on here and break it down. If you tuned in late and you've missed anything, this will be available on Apple Podcasts. Find the Hornets on SI podcast. You'll go on. This will be uploaded as long as it takes me to finish this recording, edit it, and get it up. So go listen. Please subscribe. Leave us a comment. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hopefully you enjoyed the live stream show. And me and Sam will be back with our regular show. It'll be next Tuesday, where we'll probably actually get to see some of these guys play. So that'll be interesting.
Can't wait.